What if the Balrog got the One Ring? Not later, not in some distant battle, right there, in Moria. Because if that happens, the Fellowship does not just lose a fight, the entire War of the Ring begins to shift. Not only because the Balrog is already one of the most terrifying beings left in Middle-earth, but because the ring in his hands may create something even worse than a stronger monster. It may place the fate of the world in the hands of a power no one can realistically reach. And that means the real question is not just, would the Fellowship survive? It is this: if the Balrog takes the ring, does that kill the last real chance to stop Sauron at all? To understand why this is so dangerous, you have to start with what a Balrog actually is. He is not just a beast, not just a giant made of shadow and fire. A Balrog is a Maya, a being of the same order as Gandalf, the same order as Sauron. Ancient, spiritual, powerful. Corrupted long before the War of the Ring ever began, and the One Ring does not affect every creature in the same way. It amplifies power according to the nature of the one who holds it. It magnifies will, dominance, possession. So if the ring falls into the hands of a Balrog, it does not merely tempt him, it empowers something already made for ruin. So let's change one moment. The Fellowship reaches the Bridge of Khazad-dûm. The drums have already sounded. The shadow has already come. Frodo still has the ring. Gandalf still turns to face the terror of Moria. But in the chaos, in the collapse, in the heat, in the panic, Frodo loses control of the ring for just 1 second too long. Maybe he stumbles. Maybe the chain snaps. Maybe the ring is flung loose in the violence of the moment, and instead of remaining hidden, it falls within reach of the Balrog. That is the one change. And from there, the entire story tilts. The first domino is immediate. Because Gandalf understands the danger at once, a Balrog is already a disaster. But a Balrog with the ring is not something the Fellowship can outrun and simply hope to survive. Now Gandalf is not just trying to stop a monster, he is trying to stop the ring from disappearing into shadow. And that changes the fight on the bridge. Instead of buying time and cutting the Fellowship's escape free, Gandalf is forced into something more desperate, more direct, more costly. Because if the Balrog retreats deeper into Moria with the ring, then the quest is not wounded, it is shattered. And that means the Fellowship's escape becomes chaos. Aragorn cannot lead a clean retreat. Boromir cannot focus on protecting the hobbits. Legolas and Gimli are no longer just trying to survive the collapse. Everyone understands on some instinctive level that something worse has happened than they can fully name. The ring is gone. Not taken by orcs, not captured by Saruman, not reclaimed by Sauron. Lost, inside the darkest ruin in Middle-earth, in the hands of something ancient enough to terrify even Gandalf. That is the second domino. Because now the quest has not failed in the usual way. It has vanished into a nightmare no one prepared for. And here the story becomes even more dangerous. Because Gandalf may still fall with the Balrog. In fact, he probably does. But now his sacrifice does not mean the others have escaped with the ring. Now it means the exact opposite. The others escape without it. And that changes everything. Because in Canon, Gandalf's fall is tragic, but the mission continues. Here, his fall creates a vacuum. No ring-bearer, no clear path to Mordor, no hidden hope still moving east. Only fear, confusion, and one impossible question. How do you recover the One Ring from a Balrog in Moria? The answer, of course, is that you probably don't. Not quickly, maybe not at all. And Middle-earth does not have time. Then comes the next great shift. Sauron feels it. Not perfectly, not with total clarity, but he feels that something has changed. The ring is no longer moving as it should, no longer hidden in the weak hands of a frightened creature slipping through the wild. It has become still, buried, heavy, but not returned. That matters, because Sauron does not simply want the ring found. He wants it found by powers he can bend, armies he can direct, servants he can command. A Balrog is something else. Older, prouder, more violent. A surviving flame from a deeper age. So now Sauron faces a possibility he does not like. The ring may be closer to darkness than ever before, but not yet fully his. And this is where the story stops being about Moria alone. Because once the ring settles there, Moria changes. It is no longer merely a dead kingdom full of orcs and old terror. It becomes a center of gravity, a wound in the mountains, a throne of shadow and fire. Orcs gather, creatures are drawn inward. Rumors spread across the misty mountains. Something has awakened beneath stone older than kingdoms, and now it holds a power even Sauron cannot ignore. That means every faction in the war must begin reacting to a place that, in Canon, was only a passage. Now Moria becomes a destination, a threat, a problem that cannot be ignored. And that is the next domino. The ring has not just been lost, it has changed the map of the war. For the Free People, this is almost the worst possible outcome. If Sauron had recovered the ring quickly, the war would be nearly over, but at least the danger would be understood. Here, the danger is more complicated. The ring is not destroyed, not hidden, not reclaimable by stealth. It is locked behind terror. So what do Aragorn and the others even do now? Do they turn back toward Moria? With what strength? With what plan? Do they continue south and pretend the quest still exists? Do they wait for Gandalf, not knowing if he lives? Every option is bad. Every hour gives the enemy more time. And worse still, the longer the ring remains with the Balrog, the less likely it is that anyone can recover it before the war itself decides the outcome. And this is where the story becomes clearer. Because the most likely outcome is not that the Balrog replaces Sauron. He does not suddenly become a new Dark Lord ruling all of Middle-earth. That is too simple. A Balrog is ancient, terrible, and powerful. But it is not a strategist on Sauron's scale. It does not command vast kingdoms. It does not already possess a world-spanning war machine. So the ring does not turn the Balrog into Sauron's equal overnight. What it does is something more fatal. It turns the Balrog into the worst possible keeper of the ring. And that may be enough to doom everyone else. Because once the ring is buried in Moria, in the hands of a being almost no one can challenge, the quest does not become harder. It becomes, effectively, impossible. Even if Gandalf returns, even if he comes back as Gandalf the White. He returns to the wrong problem. In Canon, Gandalf returns to strengthen the West, while Frodo continues east with the one fragile chance of victory still alive. Here, that chance is already gone. The ring is no longer moving toward Mount Doom. It is sitting in darkness, guarded by fire and shadow, beneath a mountain fortress no stealth mission can realistically breach. So Gandalf may still rally kings. He may still defend Rohan. He may still help save Gondor for a time. But he cannot restore the only plan that could truly end the war. And that changes his whole role in the story. He is no longer fighting to buy time for victory. He is only buying time for a world that no longer knows how to win. The same is true for Aragorn. He can still rise, still claim the paths of the dead, still prove himself in war. But without the ring-bearer moving toward Mordor, all of that becomes delay, not salvation. Because in Tolkien's world, armies alone do not defeat Sauron. Courage alone does not defeat Sauron. Even kingship alone does not defeat Sauron. The West survives in Canon because all of its victories are buying time for one hidden act of destruction. Remove that act, and every triumph becomes temporary. Rohan may still stand for a while. Minas Tirith may still be saved for a while. Aragorn may still gather hope for a while. But for a while is no longer enough. Without the destruction of the ring, Sauron's victory stops being avoidable. It only becomes slower. And that means the war's true shape becomes brutally simple. First, Sauron wins the outer war. Not instantly, not cleanly, but inevitably. Because once the ring is no longer on its way to Mount Doom, time starts favoring the Dark Lord again. The West can resist, but it cannot finish him. And Sauron, unlike his enemies, can afford patience. So while the Balrog remains in Moria, Sauron does not need to solve that problem first. He can let the ring sit there. He can let the Balrog guard it. Because as long as no one destroys it, Sauron's own defeat is no longer on the board. That is the crucial shift. The Balrog does not need to hand Sauron the ring immediately. He only needs to prevent everyone else from reaching it. And once that happens, Sauron can win the world first and reclaim his treasure later. So the final domino is not that the Balrog becomes the next ruler of Middle-earth. Moria becomes a vault, a living vault, a tomb of stone, fire, and shadow, holding the one object that could have ended Sauron's rise. That is why this timeline is so devastating, because the ring does not vanish into safety. It vanishes into inaccessibility. And that is enough. The Fellowship loses the ring, Gandalf loses the mission, Aragorn loses the path to true victory. The West loses its last hidden chance. And Sauron, even without the ring in his hand, gains what he needs most: certainty that it will not be destroyed before he breaks his enemies. Once he has done that, Moria is only a matter of time. So would the Balrog become Sauron's greatest weapon, or his greatest rival? Most likely, neither. He becomes Sauron's shield, the accidental guardian of the ring, the creature that removes it from the only hands that could have unmade it. And that means if the Balrog got the One Ring, Middle-earth would not face two Dark Lords. It would face the same ending as before. Only now, the last hope of stopping it dies in Moria, Because the ring in the hands of a Balrog does not create a new future. It kills the only future in which Sauron could lose. And that is what makes this one of the darkest changes in all of Tolkien's world.